What is up, my little pretties? It's your mistress, the Queen of Lions here, and today we are doing another podcast episode of Shadows and Pretties. Now, this is episode let me see. This is episode 15. So today we are looking into another fairy tale, which is the most beautiful love story that is ever told, quote unquote. And today we are going to do kind of a good review. I know I did a movie review on this movie, but yeah, I have, but not the remake of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and, explain more of, I'm just gonna basically explain more of this story. And today we're gonna be talking about another episode. And this is another one that I've been wanting to cover up for, I guess maybe just a little while or something. Now, I got this set of gaming headphones that I got today, and you might notice that the quality of the mic is a little different. Slightly different, so I think the quality of my videos while I'm talking, especially when I do creepypastas, should slightly be better, and if you guys do like it, just let me know, and I will go from there. Okay, so today we're going to review Beauty and the Beast. Now, I did a review of the original movie, and we'll be covering up the remake that the original movie didn't really necessarily say. Now, I know there is a dark version of this story, which I will get into shortly, but not really as much as we'll be talking about the Disney movie. And that is called Beauty and the Beast. Now, most of us as a kid probably have seen this movie, even if you were born in the 90s, you probably have remembered, watching this movie as a young kid. Which I remember watching this as a young kid a long time ago. Now, of course, Disney wanted to adapt this movie back in sometime in the 1930s and 1950s, but they were unsuccessful. So I don't know what made them not want to do it. I guess maybe they didn't have the great animated, stuff that they had, because this was all made by drawings and made by computers later on. So of course they had the video to direct to video follow ups like The Enchanted Christmas, which is basically kind of like a midquel, quote unquote, or something. I don't know. And then there's Beauty and the Beast, Belle's Magical World, which a lot of people really don't like Belle's Magical World. I seriously don't know why. But of course there is Belle's Tales of Friendship, which is another one. So, of course, we're gonna cover up mainly the main of the movie that came out in the 90s, and we'll be talking about the 2017 remake, and we'll be talking about, the dark origins behind it, what inspired Disney to make a movie like this so good. Okay, now let me explain a few things about it. So, of course, this is about, a young woman named Belle who gets imprisoned in the Beast's castle, and of course, to break the curse, the Beast must learn to love Belle and earn her love in return before the last petal falls from the Enchantress Rose, or else the Beast will remain a beast forever. So, of course, they've featured, other voice actors and stuff like that. Now, of course, we do have, no, Beauty and the Beast was, a fairy tale, which, of course, it was based. This whole story that Disney really adapted was from the 1756 French fairy tale, which I will be getting to that, eventually. So I'm going to go with the plot of the original movie just to, kind of refresh your minds for those who haven't seen it in a while. In a long time. I'm just going to, quickly go through, basically what happens in the movie. So for those of you who want to basically want a recap of the movie, here we go. Now, an enchantress disguised as an old woman arrives at the French castle, offers a cruel and selfish prince a rose in return for shelter. But of course the prince refuses, and she reveals her true identity to punish the prince for his lack of compassion. So the enchantress basically turns him into a hideous beast and servants as significant household objects. So of course she casts a spell on the rose, and she informs the prince that the spell can only be broken if he learns to love another person and earn her love in return before the last petal falls on his 21st birthday, or else he's basically a beast forever. So of course, many years went later, and in a nearby village, a book-loving independent girl, which her name is Belle, Dreams of being an adventurer wants more than a little town could offer, such as she's been seen as an outsider by the villagers. Her appearance attracts the attention of Gaston, an ill-mannered nerd hunter who advances and, of course, continuously brushes off, as well as him bumbling the sidekick Lufu on his way. Basically, he's trying to, engage to Belle and make Belle fall in love with Gaston, but Belle ended up, not wanting to be in love with Gaston because she doesn't love him. So, of course, Maurice was going to this fair in another town so he can show off his latest invention. So, of course, Belle's father gets lost in the forest with his horse, Philippe, and he finds the Beast's castle, so he goes in there to rest, meets, Mrs. Potts, Lumiere, Cogsworth, all that, and then the Beast ends up imprisoning Maurice for trespassing his castle. So later on in the film, of course, we see, Belle ventures off to search for her father when Philippe returns without him. So when Belle gets to the castle, she finds out that Maurice was in the dungeon, and of course the Beast said he won't let him go because he was trespassing. So basically, Belle ends up taking her father's place, which the Beast agrees. So meanwhile, Belle befriends with the castle's royal servants, Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, and her son Chip. And of course, they had a good dinner when she wanders into the forbidden West Wing to find the rose. So of course, the Beast ends up scares Belle into fleeing the castle in the woods, only to get ambushed by a pack of hungry wolves. So the Beast rescues her, but of course he gets injured in the process, so Belle nurses his wound. So they slowly, start not to get along with one another, and then the Beast and Belle ends up, developing a friendship, and as time passes, they become close and even close to falling in love. So meanwhile, when Maurice returns to the village, convince the townsfolk that Belle has been captured by the Beast, or at least she took his place for the Beast, but of course Gaston dismisses it as a old fool, hearing Maurice's claims about the Beast. So Gaston hatches a plan to blackmail Belle and to marry him. So he bribes Monsieur Diacre and the warden of the town's insane asylum to have Maurice locked up as a lunatic. So of course, before they act, Maurice leaves the castle and attempts to rescue alone. So after sharing a romantic dance with the Beast, Belle discovers that her father is close to dying in the woods by using the magic mirror. So the Beast releases Belle to save her father, giving her the mirror as a remembrance. So of course, Belle takes her father to the village, and of course, Gaston ends up to arrest Maurice, and of course, trying to prove Maurice's insanity. Belle uses the mirror to reveal the Beast to the townsfolk. Realizing that Belle loves the Beast, Gaston ends up throwing her into the basement with her father, and he rallies the villagers to follow him to the castle to try to slay the Beast. Of course, Chip arrives to save Belle and Maurice. They end up escaping and then going back to the castle. During the battle, the Beast's servants fend off the villagers and live through, as Gaston attacks the Beast with the tower, who is too heartbroken from Belle's departure to fight back, but regains his spirit soon upon seeing Belle return. So they defeat Gaston, but spares his life before reuniting with Belle. However, later on, Gaston stabs the Beast with a knife, and of course, he falls to his death after losing his footing. So the Beast dies in Belle's arms before the last petal falls, and Belle tearfully confesses her love for the Beast, and the spell is undone, reviving the Beast and restoring his human form along with the servants in the castle. So basically, in the end of the movie, the prince and Belle host a ball for the kingdom where they dance happily, and they live happily ever after. What a great story. I have to say that this movie actually did pretty good. In my opinion, the voice acting did a really good job. There's a lot of great cartoons, out there that are pretty good. Now, of course, Belle is kind of like a bit of a Judy Garland, kind of style, because Belle was modeled as, reminding me of Judy Garland. And the Beast is kind of like a mixture of a bunch of other creatures, like horns of a bison, body arms of a bear, ears of a deer, and then there's even eyebrows of a gorilla. the jaws and teeth and mane of the lion and tusks of wild boar, and even the legs and tail of a wolf. Of course, Chris Sanders was one of the film storyboard artists, drafts the designs for the beast that came up with the original and the birds and stuff like that. So, of course, we also have Gaston who wants to marry Belle, but Belle ends up refusing to marry Gaston because she doesn't love him. Like, here's the thing. You can't expect to marry somebody if you don't like them. Like, for example, if there's someone out there that wants to marry me and I don't like them, how can you marry somebody you don't even know? That's something. But however, though, the design of the characters were actually pretty cool. The voice acting did an amazing job and stuff like that. So, of course, they had a couple early versions as Disney wanted to adapt Beauty and the Beast in the 1930s and 1950s, but of course they gave it up because it was proved to be a challenge for the story team at the time. So, of course, they have an all condemned by his version of the movie, which, of course, Jean Kondo, of course, having his done back in the 1940s. Of course, decades later, after the production of Who Framed Roger Rabbit back in 1987, of course, the studio Disney decided to resurrect Beauty and the Beast as a project for a satellite animation studio. So, of course, when it was released, it was a big success and a lot of people really liked it, and they ended up really enjoying the movie. Now, the animation of this was just flat out amazing. Like, I could definitely say, that the story itself was absolutely really well done. Like, it's actually kind of based on the actual story, except it's not too dark like the other ones and stuff like that. And, of course, it did get one for, and nominated for best stuff, and did get win for certain stuff. And, of course, we do have some other things to discuss. Now, with that said, there is a Broadway musical based on the Disney movie, which is pretty cool, and they did come up with some video games and even merchandise, and there's even a live-action movie of Beauty and the Beast, which, of course, they decided to start working on it back in sometime in 2015, so, of course, they started the filming begin of the remake back in 2015, and, of course, the film was released in March 17, 2017. So, I am going to talk about the bit of the remake of it, because I really like the remake. The remake of it looked a little different compared to the original one. Of course, there's different actors, voice actors, and there's even different stuff that they did have, but they did not show it in the original film. Now, in this one, we do end up seeing the prince being turned into a beast. Now, we did somewhat see it in the original movie, but not really as much as this one did. But we can also definitely say, right now is that we get to find out what happened to Belle's mother. And, of course, the Beast ends up showing the book of transparents to the reader wherever they want. So Belle uses the book to visit her childhood home in Paris, and she discovers a plague doctor's mask and realizes that her father and her were forced to leave when her mother was dying from the bubonic plague, which it basically started around maybe the 1700s or something like that, or earlier than that. 1700s, that's when it first started, around that time. So, of course, we do see that in this movie, and the plot of it is just basically the same as the original, except there's, like, new songs that were in there, different stuff in there, and, it's actually a pretty good movie, I have to say. The casting was actually really amazing, so I could definitely say that this Disney movie actually did a pretty good job, and they even did a lot more stuff onto it, so I guess you could definitely say is that this movie actually did pretty good, in my opinion. They had lots of great stuff when it comes to that, and it's just really amazing that I could definitely say that, that the whole thing is just quite amazing about the movie. Now, the movie of it is just really, really interesting when it comes to seeing it. Now, of course, we definitely have to say, that the movie, the original movie was pretty good. And I'm really glad that they remade this movie and they made, like, a follow-up of it. just to kind of, cover things up, like what happened to Belle's mother. I was wondering about what happened in the original Disney movie, but I think maybe since they show it in this one, I guess Disney didn't want to have to, get a lot of backlash if they show it in the original movie. Well, that movie was made in the 90s, so I understand they would get a lot of backlash if they, show anything dark. And I have no doubt about it that, Disney has done dark things when it comes to making their movies. So I guess you can kind of say, Disney, you do great movies, even though they're like confusing at times or just don't make any logical sense. But you could definitely say that Disney really did a good job. Now, I'm just going to wrap this off by, basically talk about the Beauty and the Beast. Now, of course, it's a French fairy tale, so, and there was no Belle in this one, there was no Gaston, and the story of behind Beauty and the Beast is, I could definitely say that it's a little bit disturbing. Now, I'm just gonna, there was, the person's name was called Beauty, I'm just gonna name it as Belle, because a lot of people kind of resembles the Beauty in the fairy tale as Belle, because if they watch Beauty and the Beast, they resemble the Beauty as Belle. So, okay. Now, basically in this, we could definitely say the plot of this is basically a merchant lives in a six mansion with six of his children, 3 sons and 3 daughters, and all 3 of the daughters are very beautiful, but the youngest is Belle, who is mostly loved and kind, well-read of pure heart, and while the 2 elder sisters, in contrast, are cruel, selfish, vain, and spoiled. Now, surprisingly, I'm really surprised that the Disney movie didn't add, Belle's sisters. I'm very surprised that Disney didn't add any of that. And of course, on a stormy night, his wealth was robbed by pirates, who sunk most of his merchant in the fleet, and of course forces his family to live in a small barn for work living. While Beauty makes a firm resolution to adjust her life in a cheerful position, her sisters do not mistake their firmness as intentionally, forces her to do all the household work and to make sure they have enough money to buy their former home. Of course, years later, a merchant hears from one of the crew members about the trade of the ships that he sent to ride back into port, having escaped the destruction of his companions. Before leaving, he asks his children if they wish to bring him back any gifts for them. The sons ask for weaponry and horses to hunt with, whereas the oldest daughters ask for clothing, jewels, and even finest dresses possible. And of course, all Belle asks is for nothing, is to keep her father to be safe. But of course, when he insists on buying her a present, she, of course, promised for a rose. Now, of course, later on, basically what happens is the merchant on his way home gets caught in the storm after trying to get back to his family. Desperately seeking from shelter, he ends up coming across a mysterious place. Seizing that no one was home, he sneaks inside to find food with drinks and to have them left by the palace's invisible owner. So, of course, the merchant accepts the gift and spends the night there. But the next morning, as he was going to come to view the palace, he's about to leave when he sees a rose garden and recalls that Belle had desired a rose. But without a warning, the merchant quickly plucked the loveliest rose he could find. And as he was about to pluck more for a bouquet, only to be confronted by a hideous beast who warns himself that theft to his property. Now, meanwhile, accepting his hospitality is in exchange for a punishable death. Realizing the deadly mistake, the merchant begs for forgiveness, revealing that he's only picked a rose for his youngest daughter, or Belle at this case. After listening to his story, the beast agrees to let him give the rose to Belle, if he brings Belle in exchange without deception. So he makes it clear that Belle must agree to take his place to the point where then he will not treat her as fiancée. So, and not as prisoner. Well, it's kind of a little different, it's kind of like the same how Disney did. I guess this fairy tale pretty much is how Disney was inspired. Now, later on, we see that, the merchant is hesitantly upset of having Belle being abducted into marrying the beast. But of course, he accepted his condition and the beast sends him on his way. So, of course, with a horse with his wealth, jewels, and fine clothes for his children, but stresses that Belle must never know about the deal. So, of course, when the merchant returns home to hide a secret from his children, Belle prizes him on the propose swiftly, and his brothers suggest that they could go to the castle to fight the beast. Well, meanwhile, the older sisters blame it on Belle for dooming the entire family. So, of course, Belle ends up up going to the Beast's castle, and of course, she eventually sneaks away home from that night, and of course tries to go find the Beast alone. So after she arrives at the palace, the Beast becomes excited to meet her face to face, and then throws her a welcoming ceremony to treating her into a amazing show. And of course he gives her lavish clothing and food, and of course every time when he was in there. So when the Beast asks Belle to sleep with him, only to refuse each time, or at this case, the Beast asks Belle if she will marry him, and Belle keeps refusing each time. Now later on, we see is that he's only a friend. So despite the urges, of course, the condition between a prince and a beast, of course, the Beast ends up holding the prince somewhere captive, somewhere in the castle. So she searches and discovers that the enchanted rooms contain the source of, entertainment, ranging from the libraries and varieties of enchanted windows, along with the attendant feeder. So she also comes across and stuff like that. So throughout the entire month, Belle just lives in a luxurious of the Beast's castle, having every within catered to, with no riches to amuse her, and of course an endless supply of finery to wear. So finally she becomes homesick and begs the Beast to let her go see her family again, and he allows it on one condition, that she returns home at least 1 week. So Belle agrees and presented him with the enchanted ring, which allows her to wake her family up in their home. So of course when Belle goes to see her family, she ends up spending time with her she spends time with her family, but however, for basically later on, her father threatens to disown Belle if she refuses to marry his youngest and wealthier cousin next week. The wedding which was arranged for Belle instead. So of course, snatching the ring away to prevent her from going back to the Beast's castle, she pleads for the marriage of the merchant's cousin to be delayed. So her brothers rejected her, believing, knowing so much about the Beast. So Belle is basically shaken by her family's overprotection, and of course, later on, she begins hallucinating about the Beast's lying dead in his quarters back. So she returns to the castle and steals the ring back from her father. But when Belle's fears are confirmed, she finds the Beast murdered in cold blood in the hands of an angry mob by her father, for whose effort to keep the children safe. So even Belle is completely devastated. She ends up saying those magic words. The Beast has been transformed into a handsome prince to Belle's dreams. So the prince informs her that a long time ago, a powerful witch had turned him into a hideous beast for his selfishness after trying to seduce him, only finding her true love. Despite the ugliness, the curse could be broken. He and Belle basically were married and lived happily ever after. Now, surprisingly, though, everything that was said in this dark origin of Beauty and the Beast, I'm surprised all that didn't make it into the Disney movie. Like, I know there was, some other ones. There was even other ones. There were some other versions of it, but this is, one of the most main version. Now, of course, there were some other versions that were being told, in France and even Italy. There's, some other versions of it, that, are just really, really amazing when it comes to see it. Now, of course, I definitely say that the Disney movie was actually pretty amazing. And I'm surprised that anything that was said about the Dark Origins did not make it into the Disney movie. Which I can understand, why they wouldn't add any of this to the Disney movie, because Disney would get a lot of backlash if they were to do that. But other than that, the Dark Origin story was very disturbing, but it was actually pretty interesting in my opinion. I actually thought this one was actually very enjoyable. Now, of course, I could definitely say I like the Disney live-action movie and the animated movie, which they were good movies, by the way. And if you guys like this episode, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, and if you're new to my channel, hit the subscribe button down below, and even ring the notification bell to when I upload, so that way you guys will not miss an upload as I make brand new videos every single day. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching my next episode of Shadows and Pretties, and I will be seeing you all in the next video. Peace out.